Well, it's a three-person race, but only the two conservative candidates running for Rockwell Independent School District Place 2 are here in the bunker. Gee, I wonder why. Rockwall County conservatives, are you ready for some straight talk? I hope so. I'm Bunker Bob Steinhagen, and this is a special edition of The Bunker Bob Show. Welcome, conservatives, to this special edition of the Bunker Bob Show, and I know that you will be glad you took the time to hear what the candidates running for our local elections here in Rockwall County have to say. I want to give each candidate the opportunity to put their best foot forward, which is why, as I have always done, the candidates received a copy of the questions before they had to decide to participate. Through the magic of video, we create the illusion that both candidates are in studio at the same time. However, each candidate sat down with me for a one-on-one interview, which is edited together to create the illusion that they're here at the same time. This is why I will ask follow-up questions of one candidate, but not the other, and why the candidates do not respond to one another's answers. In fact, the first time either candidate will have heard the answers from their opponent will be after this show has been broadcast. Now, I have never placed time limits on candidates' answers. However, when they go long, and sometimes they do, we will edit it for time. Now, since most candidates are not used to being on camera as they are not professional politicians, in fact, the office for which they are running is actually unpaid positions. So before I begin the interview, I let every candidate know that they can re-answer or restate anything they say because the purpose of today's show is to allow them to be the best that they can be. Now, there are three candidates running for place 2 on the ballot for RISD board, but as is often the case, the bunker is not a place that a liberal would want to come to answer questions, which is why I have the two conservatives here today. And I'd like to start by introducing Dalton Tasset. Now, Dalton is a recent graduate of the Rockwell School District and is currently a college student studying political science. So, I'm interested in what you did with Best Buddies. It's an organization kind of like Big Brothers for special needs kids. Is that kind of what it is?
Yes, it's a fantastic organization that pairs up, a peer in the school system with a student with special needs. And so it makes them feel like feel accepted in the society, in the school system, feel like they're valued, which they are, and so it's important to give them a voice and have them have friends. So one big aspect with me that's been really cool with my campaign is I've gotten a lot of support from parents who have special needs students.
Wow. And,
because of my work with them or also after school, they're excited because they know I'll be a strong voice for them, It's just important because, they don't feel like they have a voice at times and they're, bullied, and so it's just really cool because I've gotten so much support from my campaign that just, so awesome, and people are happy that, someone young is running and who is a big part of the community, and so it's this painting that someone made for me.
Oh, wow.
And it says DTJ, Dalton Tasset James, and this is a cross that she did. Because of my faith is very important to me, and my verse for my campaign is 1 Timothy 4:12. Let no one look down upon you for your youth, but set the believers an example in speech, conduct, love, faith, and purity. And she said that my campaign inspires her. To have someone young that was always so nice to her run for office and to be their voice in the school system. And this took a lot of time, obviously.
Oh yeah.
And a lot of hard work. And
what's her name?
Her name's Kinsey.
Kinsey, okay. Yeah.
And
she signed it. That's
yes,
great.
She's super sweet and such a great heart. And this is why I'm doing this. I mean, this explains one aspect of my life and why I care about running for office. Because they don't get the voices they deserve sometimes, and I know what it's like to feel ostracized, not have a voice, and I'm doing this because of them, I'm doing this because they deserve a voice and their parents deserve a voice, and it's really nice, and I really appreciate it.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, I also want to welcome Amy Johannesen. Amy lives in Rockwall with her husband, Trace. She is an active member of Rockwall County Republican Women's Club as well as Rockwall Women's League. She has served on various boards and committees throughout the community as well. Amy is a former COO and small business owner and currently coaches entrepreneurs. So that's a little bit about your bio, but let's hear a little bit more about you. Now, you have 5 kids.
Yes. So my oldest is 20. She's a music education major at OU, graduated from Rockwell High School.
Wow.
I've got an almost 18-year-old son graduating this year, and he's planning to enlist in the Coast Guard after graduation.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
And then we have an 8-year-old who's in 2nd grade at Ham Elementary, and then 2.5-year-old twins, boy-girl twins.
Wow. How is it having twins? Because I've heard
it's the hardest thing I've ever done in my life.
That's what I've heard. Okay.
Yes. Twins, I should have started with those in my 20s. I certainly didn't plan it, but twins in your 40s is like, whew, it's a whole different game.
Wow.
But it keeps me young. People say, I don't know how you do it. And I say, neither do I.
Now, your husband is a member of the Rockwall City Council. I'm a big fan of his, by the way, because not only is he an Aggie, but he's a good conservative. And so that's what I appreciate about Trace. Now, you have not really been involved in politics before, have you?
No. Supporting my husband, obviously, in his local campaigns. But no, I never had political aspirations necessarily. And that's not why I'm running for school board either. It's certainly not to build a political resume.
So, why don't we start there? Why are you running?
As a mom of 5, I've had to go through the system. I chose Rockwall ISD, moved here about 10 years ago, and chose Rockwall for the school district. Prior to that, had lived in Dallas, had lived in Wiley, which was a great district as well. But my family was out here, my parents were out here, and this is where I wanted to really put down my roots and raise my family. And having 2 kids graduate from the system, I have seen some changes in the last 10 years, and I definitely have some concerns about losing top talent. We've lost some top talented teachers to competitive districts.
Okay.
Yes. And so, for me, just being involved at the local level, I think is the where you have the loudest voice, where you can make the most impact. So I want better for my kids that are up and coming in the district. I want better for our community. Our community, we're faced with a lot of challenges lately. We have a huge educational gap that we're going to have to figure out how to, mitigate through that and get these kids caught up, because this year has just been crazy town. So, rather than be somebody that's going to complain on social media, I'm going to roll up my sleeves and jump in. So.
Love it. That's awesome. So, Dalton, you talked a little bit about why you got into the race, but why are you running?
I'm running because I feel like I offer something different. And I've seen things happening in our school system that people don't feel represented. And, I was a student with 504 accommodations. I have dyslexia. And I always had to go through all the hurdles to get what I needed in the classroom. We need someone on the board that knows what it's like to have those accommodations, that knows what it's like to have dyslexia, that knows the students with special needs and knows what they go through, because that's something I care deeply about, and I want to advocate strongly for all those students because it's personal to me. I know what it's like to not have a voice, and to feel voiceless, and so I want to give that voice to them on the school board.
So, Dalton, what do you see as the school board's primary responsibility?
So, the main responsibility of the board is probably firing the superintendent if he's not,
and also hiring.
Vision and hiring. Exactly.
Not just firing.
You also got to hire the next one, right?
And just to clear the air, you don't have an agenda to fire the superintendent.
No,
okay, all right, very
Maybe
good.
I should reword that. That's one of the main things, though, the main powers, because we are the superintendent's boss, and we have a vision, and if he's not executing it the way we believe it should be executed, then we will maybe talk with them and say, hey, what's going on with this? Or we don't like how you did, one certain aspect of our vision. Let's kind of rework that. But also, another piece of it is you're a bridge from the community to the school system, right? And you want to be their voice, the community's voice, and people don't feel like they have one right now. And so I want to be that voice. I want to be that bridge. I want to lower the drawbridge and say, hey, listen, let's have transparency, Let's see what's going on under the hood. Let's go in the school system and see let's give the parents the voices they deserve. Let's have them have they're paying for the taxes, right? There's a property tax, there's a school tax, and they're paying for the school system. It's not free.
In fact, most of the property taxes that we pay, over 70%, goes to the schools. So
Yes.
it's the biggest part of that
Exactly.
tax. Yeah.
And it's important for them to feel like their tax dollars are being represented in the school system and feel like their values are their dollars are being spent right. So
You talk about transparency. What does transparency mean to you?
I mean, transparency really just. I mean, I think it's pretty obvious.
Well, it's not because I get a lot of politicians who talk about transparency. What would you like to see different that's not being done now that you'd like to see improved?
I would really like to see some committees full of parents, students, and some teachers to really review curriculum and to really kind of tour the schools during school hours possibly as well to just see what's going on, because right now with COVID, parents haven't been allowed in the schools. I mean, for the whole year, they just leave their kid out the car, and go to the doors and everything, but they don't go in the school system at all. They can't go in the schools.
Because of the COVID issue.
COVID,
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Which is understandable to a certain extent, but who knows, what's going on. I mean, did you see the thing with the door in Rockwell High School? It says LGBTQ political pathfinders. And, so those things are going on in the school system. And, I mean, imagine if parents were just walking through, just, hey, let's tour the school that we're paying for. Let's tour the system and see how the students are doing. Just oversight, right? You're
talking about in Heath High School where the LGBTQRLS, whatever that is, actually they decorated a door advocating for alternative lifestyles. Is that what you're talking about? That it's created a bit of controversy in our community, hasn't it?
It has a lot of controversy. I'm the one that actually found the picture.
Is that right?
And so I'm the one that exposed it.
Yep.
And that's one thing too. Oh, look, a student is running for school board, and whoop-de-doo, he found a picture of something going on inside the school system. So there's also that transparency aspect right there of just knowing what goes on. Because having kids in the school system, when you ask your kids when they get home, how was school? Oh, it was good. It was good. And I did the same thing with my parents, but you still know what goes on, and some things you just don't say because you don't want to make your parents upset, and you're just like, that's ridiculous what I just saw today, but whatever.
What could the school board do about that? I mean, let's talk about the door since that's an issue. What do you think the school board's role in that should be?
That's a tough one because I feel like the school board doesn't use the necessary powers they have. They don't want to get involved. They're afraid that lawyers will get involved with the ACLU or whatever if you take down that door. But my simple vision is not to take it down, right? But to make sure that the other students have the opportunity to put doors with their views on. So it's not making someone not have a voice in the school system, making sure a group is secluded. It's making sure that every group has a voice.
I see.
And so fine, if you want that door, awesome. Go do it. Have fun with it. And there's these great organizations that you can really advocate for. That you can use your, there's the GSA in the school system, Gay Straight Alliance.
Okay.
And so there's those signs everywhere in the schools, that's, that alliance between each other, which is fine, but we need other organizations to have the same right.
Well, and especially since conservative point of view is now absolutely under attack.
Yes.
I've done an entire show on that, and the voice of conservatism is now being quashed while the voice of alternative lifestyles, among other leftist points of view, are just being broadcast without any without any problem. So
yeah, exactly.
Is that kind of what you're talking about?
Yeah, and it's just giving a voice to the conservative students in the school. I was a pretty outspoken conservative student in the high schools, and most of my friends knew that, and even the teachers. And that's just who I am. I don't back down. I say my beliefs, and people respect it. And you may not agree, but you can say yours, and that's America, right? We
Amen.
have freedom of speech, and
We used to.
Yes.
Yes.
Well, yeah, that's also a hard thing too. We need to make sure we're fighting for that in the school system and the whole country in general. I mean, we need fighters that are strongly advocating for our values, for our beliefs and our rights, and the school system, conservatives have left the school system, the education system, when it comes to kindergarten all the way through college. Okay, the conservative teachers don't feel like they have a voice. They're afraid to say their opinions because they don't want to get, moved out or something. And also because their counterparts tend to be heavily liberal. And which is fine, right? But it just needs to be equal.
Do you think that comparatively? I mean, I think about Dallas schools, and I look at Rockwall schools. Do you think that we still have held on to some of the conservative values within this school district versus others?
I do think so. I mean, I do think we are much more conservative than Dallas, even Frisco sometimes, and Plano, because we have a great community, and the school system, it feels like a family. There's more good than bad, obviously, and bringing from kindergarten all the way to high school, the teachers have always been so kind to me. We have some of the best, educators and administrators, and it feels like home, and I think that's something important we need to highlight as well, and I think it's important to really, not think the school system's bad, like it's like the big evil enemy all the time. There's always things that happen that draw emotion and draw attention, but most of it is good, but we just need to make sure that we need to address each time there's a bad issue and make sure that our community's voices are being heard.
Thanks. Amy, what about you? Primary role and responsibility of the board.
So the school board sets the tone for the district. They set the goals for the district and the tone by which they want the superintendent to manage the district and with the resources that he has available. And so really choosing that superintendent is the most important responsibility that the school board has, because it's like hiring a CEO, a professional manager,
Very good. Very good. As a school board member, who do you see as your primary constituent, and how do you intend to make sure that you are listening to their concerns? Amy?
So absolutely, I believe it's the taxpayers. The taxpayers elect you. It's your job as an elected representative to be their voice and really to have that open line of communication and the transparency between the local voters and taxpayers, and then obviously the district administration. And I really think that those open lines of communication are important. One of my concerns has been that we don't have a lot of transparency with the school board. And, even just as a mom, as a taxpayer, when I go to the website and I look for, what's going on at the board meeting, it's not so easy to find. How do I get in contact, with someone? It's not so easy to find. And I think that we could do a better job in this district at communicating back to, our parents, our students and teachers and parents and taxpayers, what we're doing in the district and why.
Do you have any ideas about how to better communicate by chance?
Well, I think being available is one of the most important things. And certainly once you're elected into a position, you have to be careful about what you say and how you speak for, the whole of the organization. And one person's opinion cannot be representative of the whole unless you're speaking in an official capacity. But you can certainly be available, respond promptly to emails. That's a challenge that I've heard from some parents that, I've reached out and I never got a return call or I never got an email back. And so I'm not sure where the breakdown is, and I can't speak to the current board because I'm not a member of it, but I can certainly be sure that I can, improve that going forward and make sure that we're communicating back. As a parent, as a member of Rockwell ISD, I get an email every time there's a school board meeting, and it's just kind of a little blurb, a couple sentences about, hey, we did this, we named this school, we're naming the stadium. Okay, but when I attend, it's a 2-hour meeting, and we're also talking about 2 hours worth of material and how we're spending our money. And that's not reported back in the communication. So I think that we're failing to communicate, and we have an opportunity to keep those parents more involved and engaged, and we're just missing the boat.
Very good. Dalton?
I view everyone as my constituent in the community, and
But your posters, they say a voice for students.
Yes.
So
yeah, so I'm definitely trying to give a voice to our students in the schools, because there's no one on the board that knows what it's like to be a student, recently. And I think that's an important issue to highlight. I think that, I'm open-minded. I want everyone to have a voice in the school system, and, there's also students who may not be conservative like I am.
Sure.
And so I want to make sure they have a voice too.
Very good. How often do you attend RISD school board meetings, and do you feel that the board does a good job of representing constituents?
I started attending them when I announced I was running for office, and I would watch them a bit previously on the videos, because they had the video.
Yeah, because they were closed down.
Time.
Yeah.
So I watched those just to get prepped, to see how it is, how a board meeting is like, basically, and it's not all like. It's not glamorous, It's you're just approving, the budgets and things like that. But it's important to have oversight, right? It's important for someone to, with recent experience, to know, what's going on. I think that's an important thing to highlight.
So you have been attending some of the meetings lately.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What have you come away with, and what have you learned? I guess, is there anything?
Like I was saying, they're not all glamorous.
Did you ever think they would be?
No,
okay.
not at all. But I just think some people have a different idea. It's like you think it might be like in Congress, where it's like you're talking about your issues that you believe in all the time, and you're debating. Maybe they might be debating behind the scenes a little bit of what's going on, but
they're not supposed to be.
Yeah, you're not supposed to be. But you never know.
Yeah. Amy, how about you? How often do you attend, and do you think they're doing a good job?
So I since I filed my candidacy in early February, I've attended every meeting. I've been at every opportunity. Prior to that, I watched online because my husband, like is a member of the city council.
That's right.
And those meetings are the same nights as the school board meetings. We have hired a backup babysitter, so that's no longer a concern.
That's a good.
Yes.
Yeah, you're already ahead of the game.
Got that covered.
Nice.
But yeah, I as far as whether or not the board is doing a good job of communicating with the constituents, I don't know. I would expect more questions and answers in the discussion at the board meetings.
And the question is, do they do a good job of representing constituents,
representing?
do you think?
And that's what I mean to say.
Yeah.
I don't know, because there's not a whole lot of public question and answering going on in those board meetings. I imagine, and from what I've been told by existing board members, the process kind of behind the scenes, they get their agenda packet, the week before, and they have the opportunity to reach out to the superintendent or his admin staff to get their questions answered. So that by the time they come to that meeting, they've already got all the background information and they're prepared to make a vote. But my concern as a parent and a taxpayer is that I would rather see the conversation and have those questions answered publicly so that I know that they're actually doing their homework and what went into the decision-making process.
Amen.
And so I can't say that they're necessarily representing the constituents or not, because they don't talk about it.
That's a great issue, and I'm glad you focus on that. If you could do it different, and so if you were elected to bring, we're talking transparency is really
Absolutely.
what this is.
Transparency.
And that's
Absolutely.
important to conservatives.
Sure.
So as a conservative, and since you want to bring transparency, what would you do different once you're elected?
Well, I've published my phone number during this campaign, so I'm real easy to find. I have an active social media and a website, and my phone number is public knowledge, and that's something that my husband has always done as a council member. When people have questions and they kind of get into the social media war, he says, "Call me. Let's talk about this. Let's have a conversation." And I think that that's ever happened twice in his 3 years on council.
Wow.
So I want to make myself available. I think it's important to communicate back to the public what's going on and to actually return the emails and the phone calls and such. And I've had great interaction to this point with concerned parents. We're concerned about our special education services, the dyslexia program and the 504 exemptions. We're concerned about, money. Obviously, masking is a hot topic right now.
Yes, it is.
That recently came up. So I've really engaged with the community well so far, and I continue to do that. I want to be held accountable because that's where progress comes from. If we're not asking the questions and holding anyone accountable to the promises that they made during campaign season, and I'm not making any promises because I'll be the first to say, I don't know yet. I'm not in those backroom meetings. I haven't been trained properly. I don't know the inner workings yet, but I'll certainly find out and then I'll communicate it back.
Wonderful. In your view, what are the best attributes of Rockwall schools? Amy?
I really think it's our teachers. I think that we have got some top talent. Our average tenure for teachers is 12 and a half years in the district, which is amazing.
That is amazing.
That is amazing. And so I really think that our teachers, our educators are the front line that interacts with our students. I mean, I send my student to school 7 hours a day. Sometimes she spends more with my second grader than I do, depending on the day. You know?
Absolutely.
And so it's really important that we take good care of our teachers and that we represent their voices adequately. And I have some concerns about that. I know several very talented, tenured teachers that have left the district in the past couple of years, and even before COVID was a concern. And so there's something going on there, and I want to better understand that so I can make sure that we're not losing top talent to other districts, that Rockwall is who we claim to be. I mean, we're an A-rated district, and we've got, great metrics that are put out there, but I want to know what's going on behind the scenes to make sure that we value those educators and that we're representing their voices adequately.
I want to follow up on something you said. You
Sure.
you said the word tenured. Do Rockwall school teachers get tenure?
I don't know that they can retire at 20 years with some benefits, yes.
Okay.
So I don't know necessarily that it's tenure, like with a higher education type thing.
Okay.
But we do have teachers that have been with us for years.
I see.
Decades.
So it's not, they're not really tenured where they can't lose their job.
Right,
It's just,
right.
okay.
Not like that. No,
Okay, gotcha.
their contracts usually renew annually.
I see. Very good. How about you, Dalton? What best attributes of Rockwall schools?
Well, I think I talked about this earlier with you. It's a family. I think Rockwall schools, we have a great community, and growing up here, I have a lot of friends, and I know a lot of people in the schools and from church and everything, and it just feels like home. And I want to continue that. I want to make all the students feel like they're welcome in the schools. And I think having a younger board member who knows what it's like for them, in the schools, I think it creates that other aspect. It's like, oh, we have like our big brother watching over us, and we can talk to him, we can email him, and I'll respond, and hear their concerns, and hopefully act on it too.
Very good. What do you see as the biggest challenges facing RISD?
One of them I've seen is the bond issue. It's deciding, are we going to do a third high school? Are we going to do 2 freshman centers? That's been a big debate right now. And, I think it's nice to have the community kind of come together and, think what they want, and discuss and debate, because some people want the freshman centers, some people want the third high school, because the third high school is inevitable. I think they're saying we're needing about 4 or 5 high schools eventually with the growth happening in Rockwell.
Yes.
So
Massive growth.
Should we just do the third high school and get it done with and plan for that, or should we do 2 freshman centers and then turn those into 2 high schools eventually? So that's a big debate right now.
So where are you on? I'm just curious. Do you have an opinion?
I like the idea of freshman centers because it kind of gives you a gap from middle school to high school and with your peers, and there's still that maturity level that you're going through. At the same time, I like the 4-year high school experience. You get to know your teachers longer, athletics. There's a lot of things that's valuable about a 4-year high school experience, and I don't want to take that away from anyone.
How about you, Amy? Biggest challenges?
Absolutely, it's going to be the educational gap that we've experienced as a result of COVID. Our students went home for spring break last year and never went back.
Yeah.
So we missed the end of that school year. This school year, from my perspective, has just been a hot mess.
Really?
Because I have a high school student, and I know that this is something that is important to a lot of people. At the high school level, the combination of the hybrid schedule, the in-person, the couple days online, couple days, 1 day synchronous, 2 days asynchronous learning, 2 days in person. It was a colossal failure for my student. Now, I know that some other students may have done well, but I think that that's the rare exception. We've also lost 7% of our students in Rockwell ISD. Lost, as in they don't come to school and they don't log in. They're just gone. And that's a huge concern of mine. We've got to figure out what happened to those students. I mean, did they have to go to work because parents got laid off? I don't know. Did both parents work and can't make sure to babysit and make sure they're logging in and doing the online material? I don't know, but we've got to find them. We've got to make up for this year and figure out whether that's going to mean, tutoring programs, more summer school opportunities, something. We've got to get these kids back in their natural, normal learning environment. Deal with the emotional fallout, because as soon as they get back and can kind of catch their breath, everyone's going to, realize, wow, we just lived through something really traumatic, and we've lost a whole year's worth of education because of it.
Yeah. Very good. One of the principal duties of the school board is not just to hire the superintendent, but it is to evaluate the performance of that superintendent and hold him accountable. How will you go about doing that, Amy?
So, coming from a business background, I firmly believe that you manage what you measure. And so there have to be metrics and accountability in place. And for me, that looks like a district-wide plan, a per-campus level plan. Let's set a goal for 12 months and then back up into each month where we need to be and what we need to accomplish. What are the most important things we need to be looking at? What do we need to be measuring on a monthly basis? And let's talk about that at the board meeting. The budget is set a year in advance. We know we're going to hire someone to paint the bathrooms. That's great, but that's not the most valuable use of our time from a board perspective. We have a CFO that the district hires to handle that kind of stuff and make sure we get the most competitive bid. I'd rather see us spending our time talking about metrics, making sure that, we're hitting our milestones. And if we're off track, why are we off track? What can we do to remove the obstacles to make you as the superintendent and your principals and assistant principals more successful in this regard?
All right. Dalton, what about you? How will you go about evaluating the superintendent and holding him accountable?
It's important to, have oversight over the superintendent. It's a very hard job. I mean, there's so many eyes on him, and
do you know the superintendent?
I don't know him personally.
Okay. Have you've met him though?
I met him a couple times.
Okay.
Nice guy.
Yeah.
He works hard.
Yeah.
And so it's a tough thing to have someone saying, oh, we're gonna watch him all the time and make sure he's doing what's right, and there's something I can think of that we would just put in place. I mean, I think we have a system in place.
Yes, there is a system in place. That is correct. Yeah.
And it's a board. If we all agree that they're not pursuing our vision, then it's time for them to go.
So it's really focused on the vision and how well the superintendent is moving forward with the vision that the board gives them.
Yes, exactly. And I think it's very simple like that, and if not, then we'll make the appropriate actions. But, yeah.
Okay, very good. Is there a specific issue or set of issues on which you wish to focus if elected?
So my main ones as a student, 504 accommodations is a huge one for me. Making sure that those families have someone advocating for them on the board. Because that's no one's focus on the board right now, and also
no one's focused on the board.
That's no one's chief focus on the board is 504 accommodations.
Accommodations meaning,
so with 504, it encompasses a lot. So say for me, I have dyslexia.
Yes.
And so I had extra time on tests. I had someone reading tests to me as well, things like that. Mm-hmm. And so that's one set of accommodations. There's
I see. Okay.
More.
I just wasn't familiar with the term. I apologize.
Yeah, no, you're good.
Okay. Yeah.
So it's making sure that those students are always getting what they needed and what they need.
Yeah.
And also special needs as well. To strengthen our special education system, we highlight the athlete of the week in the schools. I want to highlight a group or a student that's thinking more about themselves. That's doing charitable work. And so I want to encourage all of our youth in the schools to think selflessly and to selflessly. Yeah. And to really be an example to all their other peers and say, hey, look what we can do, as well. You don't have to be a superstar athlete, but it's also highlighting the students who aren't good at sports. I wasn't the best athletic person, but I did a lot of organizations and was involved in a lot of charity work. And that was my chief focus. And I think they'd be nice to give students like me,
recognition.
The mic and the recognition.
Very good. Amy, same question. What are the issue or set of issues that you want to focus on if elected?
Absolutely. I am a firm believer that straight to college is not the best path for every student. It's not a one size fits all. One size fits none. And so historically, we have talked so much about college readiness, and that's a measure that, everyone uses at the district level or at the state level. It's actually college, career, and military readiness. And the district receives incentive dollars from the state based on college, career, and military readiness. And it's the same money. But why don't we hear as much about career and military as we do about the emphasis on college?
So wait a minute. So you're saying that career and military readiness
carries the same value as college readiness.
That's something I did not know.
Yes,
Wow.
it absolutely does.
Wow.
And so that's something that I want to bring more attention to. I know that we've got the Gene Burton Academy, the College and Career Academy. As a parent, I've had 2 students graduate from high school. Well, one will this year, Lord willing, because it's been a rough year.
That's every parent's problem, though,
yes.
right?
And then my daughter graduated 2 years ago. I don't know much about what's offered over there. Now, I haven't made it my job to find out a whole lot, but my students don't know much about what's offered over there. And so I think we're missing an opportunity. Last month when we were under snow for a week and the world was shut down, did you call your college student with a 4-year liberal arts degree to come fix your pipes? No, you called a plumber. So
That's exactly
I think it's important
right.
that we spend more, focus more time and attention on trades and take the negative stigma away from vocations. Most of our tradesmen are elderly, or not elderly, but they're aging, they're baby boomers, and they're ready to retire soon. And so we've got to train up the next generation that's ready to take on those jobs. And it's a great way to earn a skill set and make a ton of money without being strapped with a bunch of college debt. The cost of a college education these days is ridiculous. Crazy. And I know because I pay tuition.
Yep.
It's insane. And one of the goals that the TEA has is that by the year 2030, 60% of their graduates will have graduated from college and not owe more than 1 year's salary or something. It's kind of a convoluted number, but I look at it and go, what? Like, there's no way. There's no way that you're not going to owe 1 year's salary because my daughter has $100,000 worth of college expenses. And so there's no way that she's going to come out in the first year and be able to pay for that.
Right.
It's just not possible. So I really think we need to spend more time focusing on trades and vocations. And there are certifications that students can work towards while they're in high school so that they graduate from high school with a piece of paper that says, I can go do this job and earn a living. And that's really how we get equality when it comes to students and what they're offered, is that we make them prepared to go into the workforce. And then they can, take care of their families moving forward. And military readiness is another passion of mine. My husband is a veteran. He's a Marine. We have been blessed to be a part of the veteran community in Rockwall. Rockwall County has a higher percentage of veterans than the state average per county in Texas. We have got some great men and women that want to and are ready and willing to pour into these students, but Rockwall doesn't have a JROTC. And that really frustrates me because we absolutely should. And I think that it should even start at the middle school level because that's when students are the most impressionable before they get to high school. And so that's something that I feel really passionately about, and I want to bring more attention to military service. And I want to bring a JROTC to Rockwall. There's no reason that we shouldn't have one.
That's so true. A couple of, my daughter who's 13 wants to go to West Point, so she's
Wonderful.
already focused on that. But the other thing that's interesting about what you have to say on that is if you drive down 549 and you will pass a house with a big neighbor's sign in front of their house, and that is not a small house. That's a roofer.
Yes,
that's
absolutely.
Somebody.
Absolutely it is.
You think that if you've got a college degree, you got it made, but
Not
most people have a big debt, not a big salary coming out of college.
That's exactly right.
I love your emphasis on that. I think that's certainly something that we need to change. That's excellent. Obviously, the COVID pandemic has had a dramatic and ongoing impact on education. From your perspective, what has been both the downside and upside, if there is one, of this crisis to education? And what do you believe is the biggest long-term impact on Rockwall schools? Amy?
So the downside, obviously, is that we've had a huge educational gap this year. And I can speak from experience. I have a high school senior who tried the hybrid schedule. That didn't work out so well for him. And it didn't help that we changed to a completely different operating system at the beginning of the school year as well. So we went from Google Classroom to Canvas, and not every teacher knew how to use it or was using it the same way or utilizing it to communicate, to the students in the same way. So it was just hard to find the assignments. I mean, my son would log in to Canvas and show me how I just have to scroll through here and there to find this. And then, of course, Skyward, which is the system that reports the grades, one wasn't communicating to the other, so it's completed over here, but it shows a 0 over here, so that was a challenge. So I think that we really just missed an opportunity to adequately train our students and staff on Canvas. We've had a huge educational gap this year because of, just kind of throwing things up against the wall and hoping it sticks with the hybrid model. Now, what's the positive of that? There are some students have been thriving, learning online. And I don't want to take that away from them necessarily. I think that there is a way to use that as an alternative educational option in Rockwell. I don't think that it's the responsibility of the teacher who's teaching in person to also record videos and teach online and upload assignments to Canvas, because our teachers are burnt out. We are overworking them and having to manage 2 different learning styles. But we have an alternative, the Quest Academy is an alternative school for students who learn in an alternative environment. So why not make online another, piece of that alternative environment? And I think that would be a reasonable option at the public school level for students who need, an online school program.
Very good. Dalton, how would you answer that question?
It set us back a lot with the COVID, when it comes to education, because at home, you're not really learning everything you need to be learning in school. There's not the accountability lots of times. So, I don't view there as much of an upside to the crisis. I think it's hurt a lot of people. When all the kids are afraid of themselves, it seems. The kindergartners, this is all they know, is wearing a mask in school. Think about the social impact that has. And also having your teacher wear a mask, and then you wear a mask, and your peers wear a mask. Social cues are very important to a young person. Seeing a smile, getting a hug, that to know that you feel, accepted. That's a big part of life. And so when students aren't getting that, I think that also has a long-term effect that we're not thinking about. When it comes to the mental health aspect. And I don't think anyone ever thinks about that. And I think it's unfortunate, and if a teacher wants to have the mask on and the student wants to have the mask on, more power to them. Let them wear it, But if a student doesn't want to wear it, then, we have liberty in this country. We have our freedoms.
We used to.
Well, yeah. Well, I believe we still do. We just need to fight for them.
Okay.
We still have it in place, but there's no one passionate enough about it to fight for our values, and it's time someone does. It's time someone with passion and with courage to stand up and say, you know what, enough's enough. It's time to bring our freedom back.
All right, thank you. Our RISD instituted a hybrid model of learning where high school students with last names A through K attended school in person, while those with last names L through Z attended remotely and then swapped according to the posted schedule. There were also days when all students attended remotely. Today, you choose to go in person or you stay at home. So the question is, do you think the hybrid model is here to stay? And if so, what modifications can be made to improve it? If not, will classroom learning go back to the way it was before?
I want it to. I want it to go back to the way it's supposed to be. I think it's time to end it. I think if a student in the family feels like they need the hybrid model to feel safe, then give them the option, and let's do a waiver for them to have that. But we really need kids back in schools. That it's a must. So I think I've been told by many administrators the biggest mistake that was ever done was doing the virtual learning. That's what I've been told by people who are there are teachers and administrators, and they understand the risk of COVID, but there's a higher risk, and it's the future of the country. It's what's the educational standpoint of our future leaders, because as of right now, there's a big setback, and we need to make sure that we're fixing that, and that we're making sure that they have what they need. And so, yeah, virtual learning, biggest mistake that could have been done.
So you think we're going to be back to normal next semester, next year?
I hope so.
Yeah. Next school year, I mean.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah. I hope so, and I'm going to advocate for that. Hybrid, if you want it, not the hybrid in schools, I think everyone should be back, but if you want virtual learning, that should be an option. So it should be fully in school and virtual learning. That's my perspective.
Very good. Amy?
I hope that the hybrid model is not here to stay because it has been a colossal failure for my family. Like I said, I think that there's an opportunity for us to learn what worked and maybe offer that as an alternative, but not for the teachers who teach in person. I want to see our children back in school in their natural and normal learning environment as quickly as possible because that's what they need. And we've got to get them caught up. We've got to get things back to normal for our kids.
Very good. Neighboring Garland Independent School District allows parents to choose which school their child attends. How would you feel about giving that right to RISD parents? Amy?
I think it's great. Choice of school, I grew up in Garland. So
okay.
I graduated from Garland High School. I actually graduated with the commissioner of the TEA.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, so
wow.
We went to middle school together and high school together.
Does he know you're running?
Yes, he does.
Okay.
I actually, I reached out via his website and said, I know you have nothing more important to talk about right now than my school board run. And I got on his schedule and we had a phone call. A couple weeks back, I talked to him for about 45 minutes about the future of education in Texas. He's a great guy. I adore him. I think that his heart is absolutely in the right place and he's smart and he's strategic. And of course, he's in a position where any given time he's hated by half of the state of Texas, but he's doing a great job. I really feel for him in his position.
So you've got an inside track onto the TEA there.
I mean, yeah, I don't know what that gets me, But anyway, so I graduated from Garland High School, and we had choice of schools the entire time. And I really think that that's a great thing. It makes public schools more competitive.
It does.
It's about accountability and shining the light on them. And when you are given a choice, or when parents and students are given a choice, you have to clean house. You have to offer the best that you possibly can. We're also surrounded by charter schools coming in left and right and offering what may be a better education option free of charge. And so I think that as a public school system, in order for us to keep up with that and to be the best that we can be, iron sharpens iron. And so we've got to open it up. And I would absolutely support choice of school.
Very good. Dalton, what do you think about school choice?
I think it's wonderful. I mean, it's like a school choice kind of, aspect, but just for Rockwell ISD parents, it's kind of showing them what school choice is in a way. So say if you have a student with special needs, some schools have, teachers they prefer for teaching their student with autism or Down syndrome or that they know. And I think it'd be nice to give students an option, the parents an option to have their students served, because some schools also don't have, the staff needed for special needs kids, or some will have lower staff some years and things. So I think it's important to know what's going on in each school and say, hey, well, this school offers this. So let's have our son or daughter go there because they'll get more one-on-one, or they'll get better resources there. So yeah, I love the idea of
school choice.
School choice.
Very
good.
Very
simple.
Very good. The next question is about gun-free zones. Churches have been removed as a designated gun-free zone in Texas, and last June, delegates to the Rockwall County Republican Convention unanimously adopted my platform plank opposing them, specifically the Federal Gun-Free School Zones Act of 1990, which prohibits law-abiding citizens from carrying guns on public school property. This platform position was adopted by delegates of the Texas Republican Party and is now part of both the state and national party platforms. If Republicans are successful in repealing the act, would you support the Second Amendment rights of law-abiding citizens to lawfully carry a firearm on public school property? Why or why not? Dalton?
I mean, I would. I'm a big Second Amendment person. It's a big part of our freedom. You have that right. We have this right for a reason. It's not just something that, that our founders created because they're loons. It's because of government tyranny. And because you need to protect yourself from people who may not be having a sane mind, or who may come after you. And one big thing we're seeing a lot is the school shootings, and it's very unfortunate, but it's part of our society because, lots of the people in the society are drifting towards God. There's a lot of values aspects going on. The family structure is crumbling. And even teachers are seeing it in the schools. They're saying that the things I saw when I was in kindergarten or, in elementary school, though that parent structure of like divorce, that was one of the main things going on. Now there's a whole other issue. There's a whole other swath of issues going on now with what the students are going through. So they said, in the past like 20 years, they're also seeing a big situation happening with the family structure, and so it doesn't surprise me that we have more school shootings. But I want to see teachers who want to carry the Second Amendment, who want to carry their firearm and want to just protect their schools and their students, and if a teacher's not comfortable with that, then fine, they don't need to carry a gun. But if there's a coach or if there's another teacher that feels comfortable and that does the training necessary to carry a firearm to protect their children in the school, by all means, please do. And I think that will make the person who has evil intentions think twice. It always does.
All right. Thank you. Amy, what about you? Do you support ending gun-free zones?
Absolutely. Being trained to carry a firearm, it's not just you go buy a gun at academy. There's a process by which people are trained to carry firearms and to do that safely and for protection. And that's what the Second Amendment guarantees us, is the right to protect, ourselves and our property. And I, as a parent, would love to know that my kid was protected at school by someone who could respond in case of an emergency, that they're not just sitting ducks in a classroom. I can't imagine being a teacher in that environment and, God forbid something terrible happened. But to know that I'm trained and I'm licensed to carry, but I wasn't allowed to, and no way. I'm married to a Marine, obviously.
Yeah, that's true.
We have guns in our home, and we're safe about it. And
Yes.
there's a right way to do it. And
Absolutely.
Everyone who's a responsible gun owner knows that.
Yes.
And so I would absolutely support those who want to. You don't have to, but if you're trained and licensed to carry and you want to, then absolutely. I would love that protection for my children.
Fantastic. RISD posts 9 outcomes that they hold as a goal for every graduate. And if you were forced to choose just one and only one outcome from the list that best reflects your hope that every student might take away, which would it be and why? If you don't remember them, they're up there. Okay, you do?
I'm familiar, and I saw this on the RISD website. You have to kind of look for it.
Yes, you do.
It's not just posted right out there in the public. You have to kind of look for it. I'm going to balk at this.
Okay.
And here's why.
Yeah.
This reminds me of a company who has a kumbaya meeting and writes a mission statement and publishes it in the manual and then closes the book and puts it on the shelf. If I had to look so hard to find this, do you think anyone in Rockwell ISD knows that this is out there? I asked my high school student, my senior, I was like, hey, have you ever heard of this? Nope.
No.
Have you ever talked about it? Nope. Is it in your handbook anywhere? I don't think so. And I struggle with that because if we want something, if we have a mission, if we have a goal for our children, again, I go back to metrics and accountability. It needs to be obvious. Everyone should know what it is. It doesn't need to be a lot of fluff words that we put in a book on a shelf somewhere. It needs to be strong and solid. It's commitment. It's, if I had to choose one,
Yes.
it would absolutely be strong ethical, emotional, and social intelligence, because I think that those are going to carry us, further in the real world than anywhere else. But we could probably do away with all the other ones and just say, it's just this. This is what we want. This is how we want to send, students out into the world.
And this is specifically why I asked the question, because I feel the exact same way as you. I'm really glad to hear that. So love your answer, Amy. That's fantastic. Dalton, your turn. Which of the outcomes would you focus on?
Part of education is making sure our society is career ready and college ready, right? So I think that's the chief focus of education, is making sure that they're ready to be members of society, and to be part of the workforce. But one big aspect is making sure that our teachers aren't always asking the students where you're going to college, but why you're going to college. There's a lot of things that you can make a lot of money in, electricians, that make more than your college counterparts.
Yeah.
And I think that we need to stress on that too. It's important to make sure that our students don't let pressure and say, hey, there's these other alternatives that are making a lot of money, and a lot of people in our community are, roofers, plumbers, this tradesmen or tradeswomen, and they provided really very good living. But with COVID, right, the essential businesses stayed open. So my father has a company that is trucking 18-wheelers.
Okay.
And he was considered an essential business, and so they stayed open. But doctors' offices, they didn't really stay open too much. They were forced to close. A lot of small businesses closed that were considered essential. So that's also that aspect as well. Are you essential? Or are you considered essential? I think everyone's essential. I think every business is essential if it makes money for your family. But with this situation, I think it made everyone really realize what pays the bill sometimes,
Very good. This has been great because each candidate has had the opportunity to express their opinions on a multiple number of questions, and I appreciate both of them for taking time to be here and to answer these questions and be forthcoming and basically talk straight with you, which is what this is all about. So I want to give each candidate the opportunity now to speak directly to you, the voter, and explain why they are the best person to earn your vote on May 1st. So I'm going to start with Dalton. Dalton?
Yeah, I offer something completely different that our education system has never had. It is, recent in-school experience. I graduated from high school in 2017. I know what it's like to be a student in the school system. I know what it's like to have dyslexia. I know what it's like to advocate for myself. And I want someone who advocates for those students and is advocating for the special needs students as well and personally knows what's going on. We have the parent perspective already. We have, the administrator perspective and the teacher perspective. We have, business owner perspective, you name it. We have that perspective. But what are we missing? And it's that recent in-school experience. Everyone on the board hasn't been educated in the school system in about 20 years. So I think it's nice to have something different. You need diversity on the school board, right? You need diversity on boards and diversity of thought, you could say. And I offer that. I offer something completely different and something refreshing. And I think the reason why I'm getting so much support in the community is because people want something new. People want something different. And people wonder, why does a 22-year-old want to run for school board? Because I want to see something different. I want to see change. And I offer that. I'm doing this because I want to advocate for the people who advocated for me my whole life. My teachers are still in the school system. They're still educators. I'm doing this because I'm advocating for them. I want to make sure that they have what they need and cut through all that red tape and make sure that they are doing and they have the resources necessary for the students and for their job. But I'm also advocating for the students, making sure that their voices are heard and that I'll be present. I'll go visit the schools. I'll go talk with the teachers, the students, the parents in the community to see what's going on and to be that voice and that transparency that we need. And also bringing a voice to our parents. My parents have, written many letters to the school board over the years and to the principals, and we're always being told, I hear you, I understand. But that was it. That's all it went. And so I know what it means. I know what it feels like to be voiceless and to not be heard, even though you're being told you're being heard from. I want to be that. And trust me, that I promise you this one thing: I will advocate for y'all with everything in my fiber, with everything in my being, because if you lend me your vote, I will cherish it and I'll value it and I'll do everything I can to make sure that everyone feels like they have a voice in our school system, because that is my job. My job is to be the voice of everyone in our county, to be that voice that we need. And I hope that you lend me your vote, because I won't let you down.
I'm going to hand it to you, Amy. Why don't you talk to voters directly?
Thank you. So, I'm a mom of 5. My twins are 2.5 years old, RHS class of 2037. So we are invested in the long-term success of Rockwell ISD. Not climbing a ladder. Yes, my husband is a councilman, and you've been asked, if that might be a conflict of interest, and I don't think that it is at all. First of all, he and I have no trouble disagreeing with each other, respectfully. But I think that it's great because our community as a whole, the city, the county, and the school district should be able to work together even when it's uncomfortable. Again, it goes back to iron sharpens iron, and I want to be a part of that for our students. I've been involved in a number of local committees and clubs, but that's not why you should vote for me. You should vote for me because I'm not afraid to stand up and speak out for my conservative values, for your children, and for the way that our tax dollars are spent. And I think it's super important that we not lose sight of that in this election. I know you have a choice in this election. I have 2 candidates that are opposing me. I think they're both great guys. But I also think that I'm a mother, a resident, a taxpayer, and a regular voter in this county who has your children's best interests at heart. And I ask for your vote.
Well, as you can see, both of these candidates truly desire to earn your vote. If you have more questions of them or wish to know more about their campaigns, I posted links to their websites in the description of today's show. Now, it's important to remember turnout for local elections like these is typically abysmal, which means that a small percentage of the population in Rockwall County will decide this race, and is why your vote is so important in these local elections. I know you're watching this because you want to be an informed voter, so be sure to share the link to this program with your friends and neighbors who can vote in Rockwall County. Don't forget that Election Day is Saturday, May 1st, and early voting begins on Monday, April 19th through Tuesday, April 27th. So until next time, I'm Bunker Bob Steinhagen, looking forward to seeing you at the polls. Blessings.